Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the 2024 presidential election, in part 1 of 2 of the best the Democrats can do in the 2024 presidential election. So we're just going to get right into this. Please like and subscribe if you have not already, and check out all the links in the description. We have Twitter, we have Discord, we have a newsletter, so check out all that. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, the newsletter comes out weekly, so I'll be releasing the next article next Tuesday. So, yeah, let's get started with the safe Democratic states and this is essentially a best case scenario for Democrats in 2024. I think New Mexico, right now, I think it's a likely state for them. I think it would be safe by 2024. How's it all? These states up here. It's harder to do this. I think New Hampshire would be safe. In a best case scenario for the Democrats. I mean, the best they've done in Joe Biden had a good performance for a Democrat in New Hampshire. He exceeded my expectations there. So I think it would be safe. I think it would be like a 12 to 14% margin of victory for the Democrats in their best case scenario in New Hampshire. Maine at large would also be safe, but I think that's it for the Democrats. Best case scenario is safe. Now, Idaho would be safe for the Republicans either way. Wyoming, which is, I guess, its existence is questionable, that would still be safe. The Dakotas, I don't think South Dakota would be safe, or I don't think South Dakota would be safe. Nebraska at large, and is that the first? No, it's the third district is the only one that would be safe, as well as Nebraska at large. Kansas will not be safe. Oklahoma would be safe, though. Arkansas, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and that's it. So only 57 safe Republican states in this scenario, 214 for the Democrats. Now, moving on to our likely Democratic states, I think Nevada is the first that comes to mind. I mean, there are a lot of people who said that Nevada would be a likely Democratic state in 2020. I had it as lean for the whole election cycle. I think I might have moved it to tilt at one point or another, but it has as a lean Democrat for the entire election cycle, and it ended up being a lean Biden state. So, yeah, but I still, Nevada, being honest, I think Nevada's not trending either red or blue. I think it's going to stay, a 2-3 point Democratic state for years to come, but in the best case scenario, they'd probably win by 8 or 9% just because of high Hispanic turnout breaking for them, doing better in urban area, in rural areas. Because remember, there's one essentially safe blue county. It's Clark County, which is where Las Vegas is, where you have 75% of the population. The Democrats need to run up the score there to win the state. Then you have the other county, the Biden one, which is Washoe County, which is Reno and its suburbs and some parts of northern Nevada, which are more Republican. So Washoe was a 5-point Biden county. Clark was like a 10-point Biden county. And then the rest of these counties are pretty much solid Republican except for Carson City County, which is over here, which is a smaller county that is like a 10-point Republican county. So most of Nevada on a map is Republican, but again, land doesn't vote. Now Arizona, similar thing with Arizona. I think Arizona, the Democrats would do worse in Arizona in a best case scenario than Nevada because it's still slightly more Republican than Nevada, but they'd win Maricopa by probably 5 to 7%. They'd run up the score in Cochise County, I think it's called, as well as Pima County, and Santa Cruz County. So yeah, that's where Tucson is, Pima County, and then Maricopa is where Phoenix and its suburbs are, as well as some other Republican areas of the state. But yeah, and they'd also probably flip Navajo County too. So yeah, Arizona would be a 5 to 6 point Biden state. Kelly won it by 2.4% this year. They'd probably just build off his performance there, if I'm being honest. So yeah, Minnesota, the entire Rust Belt would probably be likely. If Kamala Harris runs, we're talking about Wisconsin and Pennsylvania probably being lead in the best case scenario for her. But I think Biden might actually end up running for re-election. And I think he can carry all these states by a likely margin. Minnesota would probably win by 10. He'd win Wisconsin by 6 or 7. He'd win Michigan by 10. And he'd win Pennsylvania by 6 or 7. So Michigan and Minnesota are certainly more Democratic than Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. But I still think that these states would kind of go back to somewhat Obama-esque numbers in a best-case scenario where you have most of the Obama coalition coming out for Biden. And I think Georgia is our other state that would be likely, essentially just the Biden states from 2020. These states. I think Georgia, it was a lean Warnock state. Warnock was the best performing Democrat in a while in Georgia since like the 90s or early 2000s, I think. He went up by like 2.1% or 2%, something like that. So I think they just build off of Warnock's performance, do better in the Atlanta suburbs, which are trending blue, and they're going to do better for years to come. And also just do better in Savannah, run up to score in Savannah, Augusta, as well as Atlanta. So yeah, and I forgot about Nebraska's second district. That would be likely. Whoa, hold on. Oh, I filled the second district as safe Republican. I'm dumb. So the second district would be like a 10-point blue district, I guess, in 2024 in a best case scenario. It was a 7-point Biden district this year, so I have a hard time seeing it's going to flip back, and it would stay likely. Now for the likely Republican states, I think Utah, Montana, South Dakota are all very likely. I think South Dakota would just barely. It would be like 11.5-point margin of victory for whoever the Republican is in a worst case scenario for them. But they still carry it pretty easily. Montana would be like a 7 or 8-point victory because Montana, the Democrats have won statewide elections in Montana. I mean, they won a Senate race in 2018. They almost won the Senate race there in 2020. Bullock ran ahead of Biden significantly. They also, essentially, Biden was actually the worst performing Democrat in Montana in 2020. I think most of you know this, but Mike Cooney, who was the gubernatorial candidate, he ran 2 points ahead of Biden. Bullock ran 6 points ahead of Biden. He was the Senate candidate, and then Kathleen Williams, who was the Democratic House candidate, ran, I think, 3 or 4 points ahead of Biden in Montana. So, yeah, but still doesn't mean it's going to flip. I just think it will be likely. For the Republicans in a best case scenario for the Democrats, Obama actually came close to winning Montana. He lost it by like 1 or 2 points, I think. So, yeah, but I still think it would not be necessarily Obama numbers because that was, by 2024, 2008 will be 16 years ago. So, yeah. And then Utah also, I do think Utah would be likely. I think you wouldn't, Utah, I think, actually, Trump isn't a generic Republican thing labeled as safe. If it is Trump, I think Utah has the potential to be likely because the Mormons don't really like him, but and the Mormons are a big part of, like, Utah's 60% Mormon, so yeah. And Alaska would also be likely. So it was likely this year would narrow up again. It would be like a 5 or 6 point Republican state, so yeah. Kansas would be likely. I think it would be like only a 5-point Republican state. And Kansas was actually a 13-point Trump state. And it would narrow up because the Kansas City suburbs over here, I think. Yeah, right. Am I forgetting the city? Because I know Topeka's down here. No, Wichita's down here, and I think Topeka's more over here. But the Kansas City suburbs are really trending blue. And Biden actually won the suburban Kansas vote. He actually won it by like 1%. So that was interesting this year. Missouri would also be likely, just kind of seeing a 10-point margin of victory, I guess a Romney-esque margin of victory in Missouri for the Republicans. It's getting redder every election cycle, but it would still be likely in a best-case scenario for the Democrats, as would Indiana. That's another state that is getting redder every year, but has the potential to narrow up a little bit. Louisiana and Mississippi would just be likely because they are 2,000 states where if the black turnout is high enough, they can narrow it up a little bit, but still not really a chance of flipping. Same with South Carolina. So, yeah. Now, moving on to our lean Democratic states in this scenario, I think Iowa would be a lean Democratic state. I mean, you'd assume that Biden is the nominee because I don't think Kamala can carry Iowa. I have a very hard time seeing Kamala carrying Iowa. But anyways, I think Iowa would be lean for Biden in a best case scenario, but just a generic Democrat. There are different candidates. Like obviously, running Hillary Clinton in Iowa, she'd get destroyed. But if the Democrats ran, a Sherrod Brown or a Joe Biden in Iowa, they could make it a lot closer or even win it potentially. So yeah, but I do think Iowa in a best case scenario for the Democrats in 2024 would be a lean Democratic state. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but I think they'd kind of do what Obama did in 2012 and have under a 5-point victory, by running it up, I guess, in the Des Moines, Cedar Rapids area and just doing damage control in these more Republican areas. Same with Ohio. Ohio actually has more upside for the Democrats because there's a higher concentration of black voters. I was like 95% white. Ohio has actually a decent black population, especially in Cuyahoga County, which is where Cleveland is. So, yeah, but I don't really see the Democrats winning it unless they run Sherrod Brown, who's not going to run 2024. But yeah, anyways, I do think that Ohio is going to be lean Democratic, or in a best case scenario for the Democrats, because they'd run it up in Cleveland, they'd run it up in Columbus, they'd probably flip Delaware County, which is a suburban Columbus County that's been trending blue for a long time. They run up in Cincinnati, Akron, Dayton. Ohio has a lot of big cities, and they do damage control in rural areas and win the suburbs. So yeah. They'd also probably carry Maine second by a lean margin, like a 2 or 3 point margin of victory. The state, this district has been trending red for a very long time, but since actually they weren't likely because Jared Golden won by like a likely margin, and you just have to assume that Biden would match Golden's performance in a best case scenario for him in 2024. So yeah, and I think we're just gonna put these last few states in the lean D column. Yeah, I'll put Texas, Florida, as lean D, and I'll go through each of them. So starting with Texas, I think Texas would be lean Democratic because of the fact that it's trending blue, first of all. Biden won it by 6%. Or, not Biden. Trump won it by 6% in 2024 or 2020. I can't speak today. But it's trending blue. The Democrats had a great performance there in 2018 in the Senate race. They lost it by only 3% to Ted Cruz. And I think that to win Texas, they have to essentially run it up in Dallas, do better in the suburbs of Dallas. They have to, Biden had a horrible performance in the Rio Grande Valley. I think that, the Hispanics would have to revert back to Democrats, and they kind of did in the runoff in Georgia, but it's kind of a small sample size. Georgia doesn't have a huge Hispanic population, but I do think that the Democrats have potential to flip it back to win back Hispanics or do better than they did in 2020 with them, for sure. So I think Texas could flip because of that in 2024. I'm not saying it's going to. I think the Republicans are still favored in Texas as of right now, but I really just in the best case scenario for Democrats, they probably win it by 2 or 3. Florida, they'd have to not do. Biden did horribly in Miami-Dade. He did horribly in just southern Florida, the Hispanic heavy areas of Florida. He didn't have a ton of appeal to them. He for example, Miami-Dade was a 30-point Clinton county. It was a 7-point Biden county. So we saw some really bad swings for Biden in southern Florida. So yeah, but I think that would be Democrats' blueprint that they have to keep running it up in Miami-Dade the way they were before Biden hit the scene. They have to do a lot better in Tallahassee. I mean, Biden actually did all right in Tallahassee. They hold on to Duval and Pinellas counties, which Biden did do that. He also won Seminole County. He actually lost the Bellwether County of Florida, though. St. Lucie County is the Bellwether County. So they have to flip St. Lucie. And just do damage control in the Panhandle. I'm not saying that they're going to win the Panhandle because that's the most Republican part of the state, but they have to stop the Republicans from getting 70% of the vote in these rural Panhandle counties. They have to do a little better and keep the Republicans' margins lower there. North Carolina, the Republicans in North Carolina actually haven't maxed out their rural support. They're doing pretty well there. They just haven't maxed it out quite yet. So yeah, but I think North Carolina could absolutely flip. It's going to be very close no matter who wins it, but in Democrat best case scenario, you'd probably see a 2 or 3 point Biden or Democrat win. It doesn't have to be Biden necessarily. It could be Kamala Harris. But they have to do better in the suburbs. They have to run it up in Raleigh, Durham, Greensboro, Charlotte, and just do damage control in rural areas. So that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe, and I'll end the video here. So thank you. Have a great rest of your day.